Hey there, welcome back to The Empowered Edge, the podcast where we unlock your best self through optimal health, a resilient mindset, and lasting habits. I'm your host, Jenna Hostetler, and today's episode is the first in a three-part series all about sugar cravings, gut health, and weight loss. If you have ever felt like you just cannot kick those cravings no matter how much willpower you use, there is a reason for that, and it is probably those little critters in your gut, not a lack of discipline. Today I'm joined by functional medicine health coach and nutritionist Stephanie Grosvenor, who will break down how sugar addiction works, why your cravings are not just a mental battle, and how you can retrain your body to crave real, nourishing foods instead of sugar. So if you are tired of feeling controlled by sugar cravings, this episode is for you. Let's dive in. Welcome, Stephanie. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's always so much fun when I'm able to be on platforms like this and share some really valuable and much needed information. So thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So, and like I was saying, I feel like these two topics, sugar and weight loss are things that people usually don't ever, start looking at the gut with. It's just, stuff that people struggle with and like, why can't I lose weight and why is all this stuff happening? So, can we start off by talking a little bit about sugar addiction? I mean, what is it? What is it not? And,
Mhm.
how does sugar affect your gut and therefore your gut health?
Yes. All right. So what sugar is highly addictive. So what is sugar? It is highly addictive. It is highly inflammatory. It is hidden in almost all foods that we are coming across, like processed foods. What sugar is not is it is not a willpower issue, specifically with sugar addiction. It has, I wouldn't say nothing to do with willpower, but much less to do with willpower than what we think. Sugar is a drug, plain and simple. Sugar is a drug. And when we talk about sugar addiction, there is an actual physical dependence that we have on it. There's two sides to this coin. We have a physical addiction to sugar, and then we also have a very emotional addiction to sugar. And the physical addiction is actually very easy to break. When you do it correctly, within 10 days, you can 100% completely break that physical dependency on sugar. It is generally the mental and emotional aspect of sugar addiction that we struggle with that takes a little bit longer. But there's definitely ways, particularly for people who really want to overcome this part, if sugar addiction is something that they struggle with. It's very doable. There's lots of tips and tricks that I can offer a little bit later as well on how you can go about dealing with sugar addiction if that's something you are facing. But let's bring it back to the physical aspect and how it affects your gut. So your gut health is really central to overall health. Hippocrates once said that all disease begins in the gut, and that is so true. But that is why all healing gets to take place there as well. And the more you can look after your gut, repair any damage that is done, keep it healthy, the higher your chances become of avoiding disease, or should I say, you lower your risk of developing disease dramatically when you have a healthy gut. So, the role that sugar really plays in gut health, to keep it simple, inside our gut, we have trillions and trillions and trillions of different bacteria that live in there. We've got good bacteria and we've got bad bacteria. Now, our good bacteria keeps us happy, keeps us healthy. They provide us with a ton of different benefits. And the bad bacteria, we all have that, but we want low amounts. When we have high amounts of good bacteria, it keeps the bad bacteria in check. It prevents it from growing and taking over. Now, unfortunately, the current diet, the standard American diet that a lot of people follow, includes a lot of foods that are actually feeding the bad bacteria and not enough foods that are feeding the good bacteria. So these good guys that give us a lot of different benefits, they provide us with serotonin, which is the happy hormone. They help to digest our food so we can actually absorb the nutrients that we are eating. These good guys get really weak and they start to die off. And we keep feeding because we've been starving these good guys, but we keep feeding sort of the bad bacteria, which grows and grows and grows. And this bad bacteria, its favorite food of all time is sugar. And not just sugar like the sugar with the table sugar you're putting into your coffee, or the sugar that you find in a candy bar, but it's sugar in a lot of processed foods, even high carbohydrate foods, your rice, your potatoes, all this kind of thing can also be feeding that bad bacteria. Whereas the good bacteria feeds off of what we call fiber. And fiber is anything that you find in fruits and vegetables. That is what feeds the good bacteria. So when we are talking about a sugar addiction, this has a lot to do with your bacteria. If you have an overgrowth of bad bacteria, this stuff is constantly screaming at you saying, feed me, feed me, feed me. And that is why you tend to have these cravings and you feel like you can't stop with the bag of chips and the candy and all this kind of stuff, because physically there are these little bugs inside of you that's screaming, feed me, feed me, feed me the whole time. But the great thing is once we rebalance that bacteria, we get rid of the bad ones and we improve the health of our good bacteria, those little guys scream at you the same way and they say, feed me, feed me, feed me. And that is where you get to the point where you literally physically crave broccoli, you crave spinach, you crave berries, the same way that maybe you are currently craving that sweet sugar, because the bacteria inside of you is actually screaming for the food. And that is what you're craving, where your craving comes in. Does that slightly answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a few follow-up questions. So, a lot of people, you talk about eliminating sugar, and a lot of people like to go after fruit, super low
Mm-hmm.
carb diet, no fruit. But so fiber feeds our good bacteria, and
Mm-hmm.
fruit is, of course, and even some potatoes, and maybe some brown rice is a good source of fiber too. But if we're
Yeah.
eating, let's say, we're eating a banana every day. Bananas have fiber, they also have sugar. So are they
Mm-hmm.
feeding both good and bad bacteria? Or is
So,
sugar when it's in that form versus,
mhm.
white sugar or maple syrup or whatever, is it different in our bodies?
So when you are looking to rebalance this bacteria, we do encourage to eat fruit, but you want to you want to limit it. So rather choosing lower sugar fruits like your berries. Um, However, there are a lot of fruits that are still very good for your gut, and you mentioned some vegetables as well, like brown rice and potatoes are really good. Even banana is really, really good for your gut. You want to eat it when it's a little bit less ripe, because the riper the fruit, the higher the sugar content. But when it comes to fruits and vegetables, it's not just the sugar content. Your fruits and vegetables have compounds in them that we call phytonutrients. And these phytonutrients are what gives the fruit and vegetables their color. And this is absolutely incredible for your gut. It's incredible for your immune system, for every single part of your body, your hormones. Phytonutrients are unbelievable. So when we are eating fruits and vegetables that have sugar in it, we are also getting other nutrients that our body needs. As opposed to getting sugar in from a Twinkie or something, or a Oreo cookie that doesn't have anything like or any benefits to it, doesn't have any nutrition in it. So generally, when we are talking about gut health, we want to eat a variety of different fruits and vegetables, because the fiber and the phytonutrients in these vegetables will feed the different kinds of bacteria. So you want to have a lot of variety. The only time we would say to really limit the sugar in terms of fruits is if you were dealing with something like candida, which is a yeast overgrowth. So when you have candida, you want to look at minimizing your sugar in your fruits, as well as if you are dealing with something called SIBO, and that's you probably or possibly have highlighted on the event, but that's a whole nother topic that we could dive into. But SIBO is a gut condition that is triggered by a high intake of fiber, of certain fibers. So in a condition like that, we would need to remove some healthy foods for a short period of time, like fruits and cauliflower and a few nuts and that kind of thing. But for generalized gut health, we do encourage a variety of fruits and vegetables. Don't worry about the sugar content at that stage. Just aim for variety. And like I say, keep your fruits a little bit lower and rather aim for your vegetables, particularly your non-starchy veggies. your leafy greens, your Brussels sprouts, your cauliflower, cabbage, all that kind of thing. Carrots, as opposed to eating a diet that's very high in just your root vegetables and fruit.
So when someone is, trying to reduce the sugar in their
Mhm.
diet, and maybe get rid of some of those sugar cravings, it is not an excuse to not have to eat any fruit. It just
No,
means
definitely not.
you just need to have more variety, lots of fruits,
Mhm.
some fruits, lots of vegetables, and for sure, cutting out on all that added sugar and stuff.
Yeah.
So, and maybe this is part of that physical aspect that you were talking about, the physical addiction versus the emotional one. But what about just like food preferences? Because some people, they grow up and they have juice and they have sweet tea, and they're just used to that amount
Mhm.
of sweetness in their life. So is maybe part of it just learning to kind of wean yourself off and just get used to not having that much sugar?
Part of it is, and I think, I mean, that's both the physical and the mental or emotional side, because a lot of what we do is just habitual. It's what we know, like you say, growing up with sweet teas and this kind of thing. But what I can say with regard to that, in terms of like weaning yourself off of it, I the more we start to focus on high fiber vegetables, particularly, the faster your gut bacteria will start to change. And when we are getting off of sugar, I do use fruit as a sweetener alternative, and I'll get into that. But we don't eliminate the fruit completely. But what's really cool to know is you can change your gut microbiome, your gut bacteria with one meal. With every meal, you are constantly changing your gut bacteria. So when you start to include a lot more leafy greens, particularly into your diet, and start to focus a bit more, and it doesn't have to be a lot of vegetables, but just starting to incorporate small amounts of different kinds of vegetables at every meal, that bacteria will start to change, and automatically you will start to crave less sugar. It is good to do a bit of a sugar detox. So it might feel a bit uncomfortable at first, but limiting your sugar as much as possible for 10 to 14 days to just allow, if you can go longer than that, that's great, up to even 21 days or 28 days. But your body gets used to this excessive sweetness from sugar. And we actually lose our ability to properly taste our food, because then nothing tastes as sweet as the artificial stuff. And that's why we're adding maple syrup and honey and artificial sweeteners, because nothing is tasting very sweet. And when you give yourself a break from that sugar, or you minimize it, maybe you're having one little block or two blocks of chocolate at night, or dark chocolate, instead of having a lot of sugar in the day, you give your taste buds a chance to actually wake up again, to start to taste your food for what it is. And it is unbelievable how sweet broccoli is. If you take the stem of broccoli, not the floret, but the stem, it is unbelievable how sweet and juicy broccoli stems are. And most people are not able to taste that, because it doesn't come anywhere close to sugar. But when you take a break from sugar, and your taste buds wake up, you are able to taste the natural sweetness in food. Your carrots, your beets, all these kind of things are incredibly sweet. You don't need to be adding honey. You don't need to be adding anything like that to it. You just want to give your body a chance to taste the natural sweetness. So the more you start to incorporate these leafy greens and a bit more fiber into your diet, the faster you will be able to almost wean yourself off of sugar. A lot of it comes down to habits as well, and just identifying why are you drinking that sweet tea? Is it because you enjoy it, or is it because it's just what you order, or it's just what you buy? A lot of us are shopping on autopilot. We don't really pay much attention to what we're putting in the cart. We're just buying the usual things we buy every week. So ask yourself, why am I putting that sweet tea in? Why am I buying that 2 liter Coca-Cola? And start to swap things out little by little. So instead of the sweet tea getting a can of like LaCroix or Perrier or something like that, which is a sparkling water that is flavored. And instead of drinking 2 or 3 cups of sweetened tea a day, move down to 1 cup and replace the other 2 with a herbal tea or with LaCroix. Like slowly allow yourself to move away from it. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. And that's why sort of diets, which I don't like that term, but that's why diets and these meal plans and things don't always work, because we often have an all or nothing attitude. And we might go all in 4 or 5 days and then eat the piece of cake or eat the pizza, and then we throw in the towel. We're like, oh, well, I've messed up. Like, I'll do it. I'll start again on Monday, or I'll start again next month. You don't need to throw in the towel. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. It's just small little changes that you can make regularly, that will have a big difference in the long term. It will have a big impact on your health in the long term. So just start small. One item that you eat or consume regularly that is high in sugar, you don't need to remove it. You don't need to give it up, but find a healthier substitute, is what I'm really trying to say. Get a healthier substitute. Maybe it's a gluten-free cookie that is sweetened with monk fruit or with stevia. And give that a try. Or there's a great chocolate in the States. Lily's is the one brand, or Good Sam is another brand that I really love. It's got no dairy, it's got no sugar, and it really hits that craving. It hits that sweet tooth. So start to replace the items you normally drink or eat with healthier alternatives. You don't need to give anything up. You don't need to give everything up. You just got to replace with healthier alternatives.
That's really interesting, what you said earlier about instead of trying to wean yourself off of sugar and kind of, basically using your willpower, that by adding more stuff into your diet, adding more of those leafy greens, those vegetables, your body will kind of self-adjust and you'll naturally want less, which makes that weaning process quite a bit easier. And that's definitely a theme that we've been seeing throughout this whole series is instead of focusing on what you need to eliminate, let's focus on what you can add. And then by adding those good things, your body will naturally kind of readjust. So I'm really glad that you pointed that out, because I would not have ever thought about that. I always just think, let's do some small, incremental, slowly reducing things, and eventually your taste buds will adjust. But it's also very interesting too. It's kind of like sugar dilutes your taste buds in a way. And when they're so used to everything being hyper sweet, like there's nothing else that they can taste. So everything is kind of gross when it's not super sweet.
Yeah. And as you give yourself that break and you start to enjoy the natural sweetness and the natural flavors of food, you will find your tolerance for sugar will go down dramatically. Even now, if I eat honey, I need to use a very, very small amount. It tastes great, but it's far too sweet for me. I remember when I was younger in South Africa, there was this soda that I used to love, and every weekend I'd buy a bottle of this, and the whole family we would have that, and I absolutely loved it. And when I went back to South Africa a couple of years ago, I bought a small can of the soda. I know it's terrible for you. I don't normally drink soda, but it was one of those like childhood memory moments. And I thought, oh my gosh, I haven't had this for years. I want to try it. And I took a sip and I thought I was going to puke. I'm not going to lie. It was so sweet that my teeth started to hurt. I don't know if you've ever had something so sweet that your teeth feel like they are aching. And that stuff I used to drink like crazy, and now I cannot tolerate it. It is far, far, far too sweet. Just because my taste buds have completely changed, my gut bacteria has changed. I do like a little bit of sweetness, but I prefer it naturally. And when anything is a bit too sweet, I can't actually handle it anymore. Your body will adjust naturally.
Okay, did you catch that? Did you hear what she just said? Your body will adjust naturally. Say what? Sugar cravings are not just about willpower. They are a sign that your gut bacteria is out of balance. And you can retrain your taste buds. You can starve out your bad bacteria, and you can feed the good bacteria that will not crave sugar simply by shifting what you eat. How amazing is that? So in the next episode, Stephanie and I are breaking down artificial sweeteners. And I know you want to know, are they really a better option, or could they possibly be making weight loss harder? Trust me, you do not want to miss it. So if you're ready to heal your gut and stop cravings at the root, grab the Gut Brain Upgrade Blueprint in the show notes. It is your step-by-step guide to strengthening your gut, sharpening your mind, and finally feeling your best. And as always, take action, stay empowered, and I'll see you next time.